Ooh, it's December 2nd of 2024. For some of you, congratulations, you have almost made it to the end of the year. Not much to talk about today on Coffee Talk, just basically because last week was a holiday, nothing much going on. I think some of us were working. Some of us got some time off. Some of us, because we might have like cheated on Friday a little bit, we're in today at probably 5 a.m. Most of y'all are in your offices, probably shops. You're getting there earlier on a Monday after a holiday. People dropping off, people picking up. So, okay. So just a couple of things to talk about. I made a post about this separately, but I just really want to drive this home because it keeps getting lost. Every time we talk about kind of what's going on in the EV world, whether it's parking garages, like public parking garages that aren't allowing EVs. We've had a fire in an EV at a baseball game, a Major League Baseball game this year. And then earlier, probably maybe it was a couple, I'm going to lose track of time. A couple months ago, the Rivian plant had a fire. Now, the problem with the Rivian plant is it's probably about, I could probably throw right, and it's further than that, but it sits right in the backyard with State Farm's headquarters. So I'm sure from the top of the tower, at one State Farm Plaza, they could probably see the smoke billowing up. Full disclosure, the Rivian employees had identified a battery issue in the vehicle and it was supposed to be put in isolation, but an untrained employee accidentally put it with a bunch of other cars that were in line for delivery. And so when it caught fire, it caught the other 49 vehicles next to it on fire. And then that's just a chain reaction. So I'm not so sure that State Farm watching the pillars of smoke come up from Bloomington didn't change their opinion. But now, in addition to public parking garages not allowing EVs to park or charge, State Farm's making the same on their property. So they are removing the charging stations and they are considering a private parking lot for EVs. Okay, so what does that tell us? Shops. Most of you are not even have to be a Rivian or a Lucid or a Tesla certified collision repair center, and you're seeing some sort of full EV or hybrids. Like I drive a Jeep Cherokee hybrid, and they have with them considerations. Now we can have everybody post that gas vehicles are more proposed or have more fires than electric or whatever. But there are precautions and things that you need to follow for a reason. So much so that you have the largest, well, probably not, I think Geico surpassed them, but the biggest P&C insurer in the country, not even allowing employees to have this capability on the property. So, what does that mean for you? You need to make sure that you are taking all the precautions necessary when it comes to storing these vehicles. We're not just driving them to work and parking them, we're dealing with vehicles that have been in collision related situations that have probably more or a greater likelihood of having a problem. And that always have procedures and precautions for how you're supposed to treat these vehicles, where you're supposed to park them, things that you're supposed to do. About a month ago, we showed a picture at Penske where they had the blankets, the fire retardant blankets that they put over an EV. Does it prevent a fire? No. Does it slow it down? Yes. Does it mean that you may be able to push it outside? Sure. We had the dealership on the Audi that they, pushed it outside and it burned in the parking lot, but at least, it only smoked up the rest of the dealership. So make sure you're thinking about these things as you go into the year. As we come to the end of this year, a lot of times your accountant's going to come to you and go, "Hey, it's December. Before we close out the year, is there any, capital equipment or anything that you want to buy?" Be thinking about what you may need to have in place to be able to make sure that these vehicles are parked, stored safely, and or worked on safely by your employees. And that's not free, and it's not a cost of doing business. And charging a car is not a cost of doing business because electricity isn't free either. So ensure that you are properly being compensated for your work, the labor and time of an employee to do something, and then the use of whatever equipment that is. So if at night when you finish working on the vehicle, if your technicians do cover it with the fire retardant blankets, like in the Penske picture, charge for it every night. I mean, the use of the blankets, the use of the technicians to do that, and nothing should be free. You can't take on extra work and extra expenses to fix a car. I mean, we all know the famous Tesla saying that it's no more expensive to fix a Tesla than it is a Toyota. It actually, well, I guess if the Toyota is a Prius, maybe, but But there is some additional labor and some caution that a shop has to take, right? We're not a storage facility like a tow lot where we just have a bunch of cars outside that are wrecked and damaged and we don't have much of a duty to them, in a bailment situation, we don't have much duty. We have a lot of duty to the customers that have brought their cars in for repair, right? We have to not only fix that car, we have to protect the other cars that are around it. So make sure that you are taking the right precautions and that you're charging insurance companies for it. And if you have an adjuster that comes back and tells you, well, we don't pay for that, we don't think it's special, show them the article and just say, well, if it's not so special, then why don't you allow it on your property either? You seem to believe that there is some inherited risk that is above normal exposure by having these vehicles in this process on your facility. So therefore, same thing goes with me. Quick reminder, continue to check your policies, continue to work with your insurance agents on all of your garage keepers and make sure that there are no changes to policies, liability limitations, or exclusions around things that are getting put in around EVs. If your P&Cs are worried about them, I know there's some things being written into homeowners policies about charging at the home and doing some things. Then just be cognizant that that may happen and it may have to change not only what you charge, but it may have to change what you do. For some of us, if that becomes too expensive, we may just have to say, we don't work on these vehicles or these types of vehicles, and we may be able to refer them to somebody that would work on those types of vehicles for them. All right, what's new in the world? Ew. Okay. Found it interesting, and we talked about it last month. A vendor, and several vendors lately, including paint companies, have talked about how much of a gap, and they keep using this term gap, there will be between what an insurance company is willing to pay and what is actually going to take to do the repair. This industry has survived for 100 years on there not being a difference. For probably the first 50 years of it, we didn't even make customers pay deductibles really. It was a marketing strategy. And then now where we're at right now, there's not only did we got to collect the deductible, we can't eat that, but there's a gap there and you guys cannot continue to eat that. There's even in the DRP realm, I don't see a way forward outside of court and right to appraisals or whatever, where shops will survive by not charging the customer for things that are owed. And there are things around material, there are things around labor operations, there are lots of things that you're owed, calibration, scanning, lots of things that you're owed. Particularly of interest lately on the materials one is that we are finding more and more DRPs under their DRP agreements are being reimbursed additional material expenses. Ironically, it's almost easier to be a DRP and get your material invoices reimbursed than it is to be an independent repairer. So based on that, there's really no reason everybody in this industry should not be itemizing their materials and expenses. And there's a plethora of programs out there at your disposal. If you just want to do your pours, your paint company probably has a scale program. There are providers. 3M has a cabinet system. NCS has a cabinet system. There's that. And then, Eagle MMS, we like it just because it's online, no cabinet required, no long-term subscriptions. You just simply go in and kind of like play picture pages with Captain Kangaroo on what operations are being done to the vehicle. This is very much written from an estimator's perspective, so we don't have to consult technicians and we don't have to consult the painter or do any of that. It creates an invoice and then brings that invoice, kind of sucks it on back over into your estimate and you're good to go. Excitingly, because insurers have started purchasing and using their own calculator systems as they work to negotiate against what shops are submitting. The boys over at Eagle are releasing what we like to call a light version of this. And it's not necessarily paint line specific. We don't have to put your paint line in and know, what primers and clear coats and everything that you're doing. It takes a more general approach across market price, and then you can get an invoice, kind of we'll call it general, or maybe we'll call it a light version. I'm not real sure which one he wants to settle on yet. I did see a demo of it last week, and I really like the way it is. Within like a minute, you've got an invoice. He's going to make that service available without a subscription. So let's say you're a shop and you go, don't plan on doing this, Kristen, but maybe you're in the middle of a particular negotiation, or you're working on a right to appraisal or something and you want to use it one time. Well, you're going to be able to go in there and one time, one off, buy a report and do this on the internet super quick without having to like go through subscription and sign up and get onboarded and do all of those crazy things. It'll just be there for you to use. It'll be that same way for insurers to be able to go in there and use when they need it for negotiations or RTAs or whatever they're working on. And then maybe you're a shop that you're like, well, we work with 7 different insurers and 6 of them say no every time, but this one will say yes. Then only pay for it when you need it, right? Another great kind of addition from Yanni, you can tell the products and services in this industry that are created by people that were technicians and shop estimator operator owners in this business, because they just keep evolving and creating things that are super, super easy for the techs to use. So we like that as well. Everybody, I really can't think of an excuse. I don't care what you use. I really don't. I mean, 3M, your jobber, your paint company, but everyone, DRP to no DRP, OE certified to non-OE certified, fleet work to consumer work, you need to be itemizing. The material expenses are outrageous. They will continue. I mean, I guess we're all sitting around waiting for the January increase, which will probably be another, 3 to 7%, depending on what product line you're using. We'll take another jump in January. There's no way you survive without itemizing material. The formula just does not work. This is obviously a screenshot, just overview of pulling from the estimate into the program, but you see Yanni up there in the corner. You can go watch the demo videos on YouTube, or you can schedule a webinar and jump in and have a demo done if you're not using that system. But I also know that NCS would love to talk to you about Logic and give you a demo as well. And I'm sure your paint company or your jobber selling your paint would love to give you a demo of whatever they have. But please, whatever you do, start itemizing and make it an every estimate practice for the coming year. Holiday season, this is when I'm sick now too, so we'll just go with that. But this is where you're going to have people go on vacation, people are going to get sick. And so particularly when estimators are out, things get a little hectic. Don't forget, Derek's got his Smart Right system. So the Crytek guys have virtual estimating up and running. How good is it? I'm a big fan of virtual estimating, just because there's no value in a complete and accurate first appraisal anymore. I think we can all agree on that you work your ass off and you write a really good sheet and then it just gets halved anyway. It seems like no matter what you do, you get back half. So that 4 hours or so that you've put your heart and soul into that appraisal, I'd just much rather outsource that out and let somebody else write a really good sheet. How good can you be? Well, when we do estimate reviews, which are based off photos and the shop's existing estimate they submit to us, we are on average doubling every estimate. So this was a 2023 Tahoe a Volkswagen that we just recently did. And we added $13,000 to what the shop had originally wrote just on their pictures and their appraisal. Sometimes it matters when someone writing the estimate has familiarity with that brand. So maybe you get a car in this time of year and you don't write a lot of VWs. You write a lot of Hondas, or you write a lot of, Chevrolets or whatever. So it's a great service to think about, when you're somewhat out of your comfort zone. Don't fight it. Just use other things and other means. But it's also good for staffing at this time of year when you can just kind of add an extra virtual estimator that gets in there and gets you a really good sheet, does the OE research, kind of does all that stuff for you and gets it back to you. So you just go to crytek.com and get that ordered. And the turnaround time is fantastic. It's a day. Sometimes it's even faster. Obviously, I don't want to put Billy and his team on the hook for that, but fantastic turnaround time. And most shops, well, I haven't had one yet write me back and say they didn't like it. But so all the shops that are using it right now are reporting back that it's better estimates than what their people were writing. And by better, to me, that just means more profitable. So we worried about, sometimes would the estimate be not as good, but that's what supplements are for anyway, right? So we're in good shape there. So think about that as the month comes and you have people leaving and taking vacations and taking off to go to Christmas banquets and Christmas dinners with kids at the schools and all the stuff that we want our employees to do. We want them to have family time. We want them to do all that good stuff. And so that we can keep claims moving along. Speaking of claims moving along, auto claim school will be February 3rd through the 7th here in beautiful, sunny, wonderful Little Rock, Arkansas. And there is a lot going on in that school. So it is not an auto estimating school. So for body shops that have been calling and going, hey, can I come and learn estimating? We're going to talk a little about estimating, but the primary focus will be on kind of this claims ecosystem and what's going on. So we'll start with covering insurance principles, just the basics of a policy and what it is and all the different insurances and what rates mean and premium and kind of all those things. We'll learn with that. We'll go through the auto claims process, what happens for reported claims, fast track claims, online claims, field claims, kind of that whole ecosystem. And then we're going to get into skill development. It's mostly, think of this as what it would be if you wanted to be a really good, productive, field independent appraiser. So we'll go through vehicle inspection, the do's and don'ts of inspecting a vehicle from that perspective versus a body shop technician perspective. What an estimate review and an evaluation looks like in that case. We'll be covering post-repair inspections, how to conduct them, what you do and don't do, what you write and don't write, what happens when there's, all the different stages of a post-repair inspection. And we'll have the case study here. So the $300,000 BMW will be on display. With the case file, that one did not go to trial. It settled out, but there were depositions on that one, and we'll kind of have all of that, plus the attorney that represented the consumer on that one will have their thoughts. We'll have some shop testimony that was given in the depots, and we'll just kind of go through all that so you can see kind of how that winds up when you're going to have to step up as the appraiser. We'll cover diminished value, determining an actual cash value, what to do in a right to appraisal, and what not to do. Unfortunately, we have a lot of people that, because right to appraisal got popular, they just decided they were going to be adjusters because I used to work in a shop and I used to write estimates. So clearly I'm qualified for this. And there's been a lot of things done wrong in right to appraisal. It's causing some issues right now. It's causing insurance companies to open SIU investigations. So we want to kind of cover that. I agree with kind of what Robert McDormand is doing down in Texas with his whole transparency kind of thing and what he's trying to do. We talked about this on a conference call with a bunch of respected, really good IAs in the business, that they're just encountering people that clearly have no idea of the process and what they're doing, and they're just kind of winging it as they go, and that's opening their client, which in this case would be an insurer, to a lot of issues. And sometimes they're opening the body shop to a lot of legal issues too. So we'll cover through that, which will lead us into court reporting. So Larry and Mark write fabulous court reports. Larry's been through federal court. He's had a Daubert hearing. He's had all of that good stuff. So he's going to go through court reporting and then expert testimony, how you provide expert testimony, what that looks like, what it doesn't look like. Full disclosure, still working on the attorney that we want to have come in and do a mock depot and kind of let each person go through that process and kind of get to feel that pressure and what it feels like. And then we'll also be doing a business focus. So if you do want to become an IA, what does that mean, right? You got to get paid. So how do you open that practice? What's required by varying states? Sometimes you'll have to become a licensed public adjuster. Sometimes you don't, right? It's kind of like the wild, wild west. How do you develop your clients working with insurance companies, body shops, and attorneys? And then what contracts and forms would possibly be needed? I got to tell you, I'm having a blast with this one. So I keep going through and pulling out all the old course material from over the last 30 years. Looking back, this is how we used to get claim reports, right? This is before computer electronics. We had the DOS green screens, your claim reports printed out on the back of a fax machine, and you pulled it up and then you stapled it in a folder. And so going through some of these old files and looking at some things have been a lot of fun. We'll be incorporating a lot of that. I still believe mid-90s was some of the best training in the industry, and people that were trained during that era have a very strong and broad foundation, and it allows you to think and make really good decisions. So I'm really excited to bring that back. So we would love to see you in Arkansas. If you want to make it to claim school, February 3rd through the 7th, You can reach out to Melanie. It's Melanie@collisionhub.com. She's really easy to get to. There is no certification association with this. This does not qualify you for continuing education to maintain your license in any state, and then this does not license you for any assignment. So yes, I have friends at Worley and Pilot and Eberl, but this is not CAT training. This isn't something that once you finish, you're on X insurance company's call out list. So I just want to make sure that that is very, very clear. We do have some courses that are recognized by state insurance associations. This is not one of them. And full disclosure, I will never ever seek that with this one. It's just we want to keep it independent and more of a collision focus than a general insurance, CAT kind of thing. Props to the CAT teams. They're working hard. They're still out there on the hurricanes while the story has left the news. That's a rough job. So it took a year and a half before I was done with Katrina, right? So what's going on in North Carolina, Florida, et cetera, with the hurricanes over there, those guys are out working and they'll be working. They work Thanksgiving and they'll be working over Christmas as well. So CAT is a noble profession. It is not a profitable one. If you believe you make a ton of money being a CAT adjuster, it's not how that works. So I wish it did, right? Or I would still be doing CAT if that was the thing, but it was a great time. So we hope you all have a great week. I do have some really cool stuff I may get to talk about next week, some really exciting developments, some possible depositions coming with an insurance company, which is really nice. We also have a shop up in Minnesota that has some testimony from a recent deposition with an insurance company that we're going to be able to get out and share. Kind of what they're saying about the repair process that I think is just really healthy. I 100% agree with everything that was said in this deposition by the insurer. And I think it's something that a shop just needs to read in black and white, because when I say it, you just don't believe it. You don't want to believe it. But seeing it in black and white makes a big difference. So we hope that by next week, we'll be able to share some of that with you. So hope you have a wonderful week. And as we start the last month of 2024 and make sure it's prepping you for the best 2025. Thanks.